because I'm obviously here, you can see me.
Yeah.
I choose to a certain extent to not be seen, to not do something that has me be more memorable. And that is very connected to having been bullied as a kid, I think. Whoa! Yes! Now Dave won't be the only one with a painting on the fridge. Kind of touched on the transition. You were saying that you were feeling anxious, and I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm anxious all the time. And I think it started at this moment when I was like 6 or 7 years old, when I started getting really self-aware and just like aware that I'm my own person, and that means that maybe, I don't know if I saw some kind of responsibility in that or not, but
Like a separation almost.
yeah, definitely a separation. But yeah, then all of a sudden, I'm not just like a person who tags along with my dad and my dad and I are one. It's more like, oh, this is my daughter and here she is, look at her, and to all of a sudden have people look at me and for me to have to be someone, I think was definitely had a shift in my how I presented to the world ever since then. That I went from like the loud, dirty, rambunctious child to being who everybody remembered and kind of hid from, like don't see me as your jungle gym or whatever, to the little girl that was hiding behind her dad's legs, and people didn't even notice me, and I still struggle with that I sometimes feel like people don't notice me. And it's
was that a pressure you think you put on yourself, or like was it given to you by the world, or was it just like your understanding of, oh, I need to hide?
I don't know. It's that timing kind of goes right along with when I started being bullied. That all of a sudden there were kids that would make fun of me so that they could all laugh, but I wasn't part of that fun and of that laugh.
You're becoming the outsider in a way.
It comes back down to the inclusion exclusion piece that I kind of touched on earlier.
And this was in Austria?
That was all in Austria, yeah.
Is Austria different for kids like than here?
Yeah, I mean, especially for me, I think growing up in such a big family, I'm noticing that even though I grew up in a very individualistic culture, like Austria, very similar to the United States, it's just very like, oh, you're the best in class, you get a gold star and you get a trophy and it says you are the best, and it's like, that's like what kids want, to be like the number one only at something. But because I grew up in such a big family, I got a lot of the collectivistic values of like, I don't know, there's like this saying of like, a group only moves as fast as no, there's like a chain analogy.
A chain is
like,
as strong as its weakest link?
Yeah, but it kind of also goes with like being, like you don't go faster than the slowest person walking, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely was a big thing in my family of like, well, if one person in the family is late, we're all going to be late.
And then so there's a big pressure to not be the slowest person?
Not necessarily, because that's like the difference between like the collectivistic and the individualistic of like, it's not me who is late. We're all late.
Yeah.
And we all get to have that responsibility together, and that's great. But you were asking if Austria was very different for children, and I think in a way where I see a big difference is the way that school works. That after school I would just come home. I would come home at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and I would have just free time, homework and free time. And here I feel like kids come home from school and they have all these activities, and they don't even come home from school because they have theater in school, and they have dance, and they have football training and swim lessons and all that kind of stuff, and it's all kind of like taken care of. And for me, it was like I come home and then I have to make my own plans with my own friends, and we decide what we're gonna do.
Are you grateful for that now? That style?
Me in the situation that I was in, yes, because I grew up on the countryside. Maybe if I had grown up in the city, I would have had a different opinion on that. But I mean, I just spent hours upon hours. Like, I grew up in a tiny little village, and we didn't have any watches or phones, and we would come home whenever the village church bell was ringing, because that's like,
that was your cue.
That was our cue, and then we would come home and it's time for dinner and homework or whatever. So yeah, I have a lot of fun memories. But then again, when I got older, I definitely had like lots of free time and not focused attention into like getting skills that are like measurable. Kind of had a toll on me on like, when I came here, I started playing volleyball, but I had never had interactions with balls before.
Yeah, when you want those skills that are measurable.
Yeah,
like,
or like, yeah, like I never had like played in a group sport before, or like that kind of stuff. It was more like free flow, and yeah. So that's sad. Or I never like. Often, or when I first came here to the States, people would ask me, what are your hobbies? What do you do for fun? And I'd be like, I didn't have like, oh, I played soccer up till I graduated college or stuff like that. I didn't really have that. Like, my identity wasn't with a thing. And that's definitely a big difference that I see in growing up between here and Austria. Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying earlier about not being seen, when do you feel the most seen?
I feel very seen right now. I think the most wholesome thing that comes to mind right now is when I'm with a little kid. I'm a preschool teacher by trade, and my favorite age to work with is from like 2 to 4 years old. And when I'm with a little person that age, I feel very seen. I feel just very like, yeah.
Interesting.
Like I don't feel like I need to hide. I feel like I don't feel like I need to be better at things. I can be exactly where I am and get to have this really precious connection with an amazing human being. And then other times I think are like, I like going to like, I mean, it's part of like when we have meetings here at the community, or when I go to like, my partner Dave puts on these like connection game workshops, and when there's like a prompt in the room, and then you go around and everybody answers that prompt. I like that kind of being seen too, where I get to like share something vulnerable, and
there's that like structure.
Yeah, structure, almost like in school. Like, I know how to follow instructions, so I can like do it right. I think that with the being seen, like, because I'm obviously here, you can see me.
Yeah.
I choose to a certain extent to not be seen, to not do something that has me be more memorable. And that is very connected to having been bullied as a kid, I think, where the trade-off between, do I want to be memorable and risk being laughed at and being excluded?
Yeah.
Or do I want to be just like on the outskirts of an organism and feel like I'm kind of part of it, but then if I run into someone in the street from that group, they won't recognize me, for example. Like, what's the trade-off? But at least I won't get laughed at.
Yeah. And these were like thoughts like that you consciously have growing up?
Oh, those are the thoughts I have right now.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, those are the thoughts I have in every time I'm in a social situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds difficult.
Yeah, I mean, other people have eating disorders. I have that. We all have our things we need to work on or live with, whatever we choose. And
do you feel like you're working on it?
That? Yeah. I feel like I am, and I think a lot of that has to do just with like self-care. I'm a people pleaser. That kind of goes along with not wanting to be bullied and not wanting to be left out. It's like I'm people pleasing. And in that, as I'm sure other people pleasers know, it's really hard to fill your own cup before you give to others. And I think for me, in my journey of like social anxiety and being seen, being laughed at, fear of being bullied and excluded, there's a lot of just like, okay, what feels the best to me in a moment, and how can I take care of myself? And not necessarily like putting on a show for other people because I feel like they need to feel comfortable. Like now I go to social events, and if I don't feel like I want to socialize or I can't be seen right now and I want to hide, I just do that at a party. And I just went to a birthday party, loud party all around me, and I felt super low energy, and all I wanted to do is just go home. But we had ordered some food, so I was waiting for the food to come. And I was like, instead of just like pretending like I want to socialize right now and be seen, I just sat in the middle of the room and was just invisible. I'm sure I know people saw me and noticed me, and I used to have like really get into my head around that and be like, oh, do I make people uncomfortable by not interacting with anybody and just sitting here? Am I gonna make people point at me and be like, oh, she's weird, why is she even here? And
which makes everything worse, I bet.
Yeah, but I've traded that with just like, again, like filling my own cup and taking care of myself.
Yeah. I think that's such an interesting thing. Like there's like maybe a thin line there with social anxiety, where sometimes self-care is being like, hey, I need to step out of this situation and like feel safe and fill my own cup. But then sometimes self-care is actually, hey, I need to make myself uncomfortable in this situation and socialize because that's how I deal with the anxiety.
Yeah.
Are these things that like you're thinking about? Like,
yeah, I mean, again, like it's all the trade-off, like, and I think it's very, yeah, just I know that about myself, and I've been told a lot of times that I'm very good at being present with other people, and it really just comes down to like putting it back on me and like being present with myself and just checking in, like, what do I want to do? And is it more important to me that if I like see one of the people from the party in a restaurant next week, is it important for me to have them remember me? Or is it more important for me to have taken care of myself in that moment? Interesting. So
it's interesting that you frame it that way. I've had situations sometimes that made me feel weird because like in high school, I remember I was like I was just like walking out of class with this one girl, and I was like, oh, I'm Jakob, and she was like, I know. And I was like, had no idea who she was. And that made me feel like uncomfortable in a way that was kind of like hard to place, I guess.
Yeah.
Where it was like kind of the opposite feeling of like, oh, I'm putting myself out there, but like not even necessarily taking the time to appreciate that there's like other people that are absorbing that energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I love awkwardness. I think it's great. I often make situations very awkward for other people, and I feel the awkwardness. But it's also like I don't really have a huge problem with that.
That's like
so I would be like, oh, cool. You know my name. I have no clue who you are.
You are? That's funny. It's kind of a power move.
But yeah, I have definitely learned to not like that. People can get hurt by making it awkward on purpose. So.
So that's not even like I have learned to not do it. You're like, I know what the consequences are, so now I can pay more.
Yeah, no, I'm aware. I'm aware. Yeah.
What's something you're grateful for?
That's such a loaded question for me right now because I feel maybe I should just answer the question. There's so much I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my pets. I'm grateful to we're sitting in front of my house that I get to live in. That's like, and I'm looking at this like amazing view in Southern California, like.
Thank you.
And yeah, and
I am quite the view. Yeah.
You're included. I'm grateful that I have a lifestyle where I don't really have a 9-to-5 job. I'm grateful that I live somewhere where I can hear the sheep. What do you say? Sheep.
Oh,
Sheep.
bleat.
Bleat.
Mm-hmm.
Where I hear sheep bleat, and yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually wrapping this drawing up.
Oh my gosh! I'm gonna get to see it.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 the big reveal.
Okay, I'm like, should I add more? But I don't want to like make it worse, you know.
I hate when preschool kids do this and they like paint their masterpiece. And I learned to like take my phone and take like progress pictures of preschool kids' artwork because there will come the moment where a preschool kid just comes in after they have spent this like 15 minutes on this like amazing, gorgeous thing, and then they just
And that's a long time for a preschooler.
It is a long time for a preschooler. Yeah, and then you're like, oh no, you covered it all in brown, but you can't have that reaction as a preschool teacher. You're gonna be like, oh, I see that you're adding more color. Yeah. So I've learned to take pictures in between, and I can totally appreciate you wanting to stop before you make it worse.
No, yeah, you don't want to overwork the drawing, but there's also like so much of a drawing is deciding what not to include, honestly, of like details of someone's face because there's so much information. But really when you're, it's more true with bodies, but face is true, it's like what to ignore. And like zooming back, like overall, what is their face shape? Do they have a long face? Do they have a wide face? Like really just make sure that translates. And then that way, once you have the features in, it still reads like them, I guess. Okay. Dun, dun, dun.
Whoa! Yes! Now Dave won't be the only one with the painting on the fridge. Thank you so much!